try to get to sleep, I flip over and go, Altai! It's in my nightmares. I need to get away from it. I need to escape to something as open as my crayon book. Yes, that's right. I have crayon books. It is, of course, Prairie. Look at this. Ah, it feels good. It's like there's nothing to hide behind. It's beautiful right now. This might get me over my nightmares, Altai. And what a way to do it. Rank number 32, playing as the Mongols over here in the orange, is going to be going up against Big Noob. Anything but. It is, of course, someone who I'd expect to be like, rookie of the year type person. It is, of course, Poppy Paw playing as the Roos in the yellow. Man, this should be an interesting one, actually. Playing as the Roos on such an open map, it's a bold move, Cotton. It's a really bold move. Roos can be a tough one if you ever need to go into archer type comps. I actually quite like Roos in team comp games on Prairie because you could just mass knights and that only requires food and gold and you get plenty of gold close to base. But if you have to pivot into wood, things can get a little bit awkward. One cool thing you could argue for the Roos is they get extra wood, right? They take this limited resource and inflate it by 20%. But you need a wooden fortress per wood line, and these wood lines usually aren't this generous. Like, I'm not going to lie. I think if there's any generation where I'd favor the Roos, this might be the one. Because Puppy Paw got abundancies just the north side. Boar, deer, wood lines, reserve gold, all of it up here. Nothing to really worry about south side. I don't think I've really seen a generation this giving to a Civ that wants it. We'll see how it works out, though. He's still going to be up against the Mongols, a Civ that can be incredibly aggressive and effective on a map like this. Open maps really do play to the advantage of the Mongols, especially if they start to pin you in, because they can just start moving out onto the deer, onto the boar, and getting those superior gathering rates, offsetting their requirement to go in pastures. Make no mistake, folks, if you're playing Mongols, there's one thing that can cripple your game. It's a need to go into pastures on Prairie. It's double what a farm costs. It cripples you hard. Bidlin says, Roos don't suck as much as people say on this map, considering fairly safe ball. Not saying they are great, but it's not the end of the world. I think it's fairly bad. I would put Roos like bottom 3, probably. Maybe bottom 4. I think for Roos, you can talk about this ball you want, but like once again, that's making you one-dimensional. I think like a big part of what fuels Roos is wood-based units. And most generations are not going to be this generous. Right, like this is one of the best generations I've ever seen for a Roos player. Sometimes what you'll get is these wood lines, and I remember like there was a game that Magic played at Wallalaw where he done this, where you had all these wood lines around you and he negotiated territory, right? He built walls to secure areas. That's a cool thing that some civs can do, but that's a cool thing that Roos cannot do. Because remember, their wooden palisades, because they're fortified, were heavily nerfed. They used to take 3 seconds to build. Now they take 7. So trying to negotiate these areas with wooden walls isn't an option either. Wooden walls that would be really pricey as well. So yeah, it's a tough one. I like them in team games, like I said though. In team games, because you do a one-dimensional build, you just mass knights. And knights are incredibly effective in team games. But in 1v1s, you have to dip your toe in multiple pools. We'll see what he wants to do though. By the way, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Mongol player's name, I checked. I don't know if we've got any people who speak Chinese in the chat. But it translates as Naizi. What's that?
Naizi.
Naizi, which is breast. Man, I'm just going to practice my Chinese. So Naizi here. Looking to be the big breast. Let's see if they can do it. They've got a far of gold vein here, which is a vulnerability that could be exploited. Silver trees. Okay. Nice. That's pretty greedy. On an open map like this, with the potential for you to be up against feudal age knights, having Yam would be invaluable for keeping villagers alive and also reacting to raids with spears. So if this gets spotted out and Puppy Paw goes into knights, this game could get very uncomfortable for Naizu. And they did open up with stables as well, so knights match up fairly well against that, right? You can only go horseman here. Interesting part is he didn't go horseman at all. He went for the 2 extra scouts. Interesting, actually. Like I quite like this detail. It's something I'm a big fan of. It's one of the things why I put Roos bottom 4 instead of like the worst, because one advantage Roos can have is if they do see it valuable to go for that hunting cabin, they'll get extra scouts. And why that's a big deal, there is a lot, and I mean a lot of sheep on this map. I can't remember the exact number. I think, am I wrong in saying it's like close to 40? Maybe like 35? There's quite a lot available. And well, because a lot of the sheep aren't going to be with him, we're already going to see the move out into the ball pretty early for Puppy Paw. A valuable one to do. And this Wooden Fortress placement, this is what I was talking about how good this generation is. This Wooden Fortress protects his ball, and now it will buff up 4 different wood lines around him. Pretty damn good value. Horseman on the way. Looks like there's going to be some fortified palisade walls coming out. Or attempts to, anyway. He's going to force the Gary. Silver Tree. It looks like there's going to be double production coming out, so he's definitely going with the trade. Naizu is doing this right, by the way, as an opener. The Horseman into the outpost attempt is going to keep all the tension on Puppy Paw's base. This is very important if you want the trade to work out. It can't be discovered in its infancy, because it'll easily be assassinated by 1 or 2 knights, which is not a hard commitment for Puppy Paw to make at this stage, because he'll just trade across for what he needs with the supplies he's built up, and then get 1 or 2 knights into the field. For now, definitely the right approach. Spears also being mixed in as well, just in case the knights do arrive. I'll ensure that the horsemen can't be deterred. And a free villager investment from Naizu. Outpost should be close enough to deny the boar as well. Maybe not without arrow slits. I think even without arrow slits, actually, it should be good enough. So annoying, because right now, Puppy Paw has nothing to defend with. He's built stables, but remember, those knights, they take 35 seconds to build. Definitely will not be there in time. And Naizu actually cancels it. Moves further north. Interesting choice. He wasn't sure either if it was covered or not. This most definitely will be. Ball, only 500 have been gathered so far. Not really the bang for buck you're looking for. First knight is about to hit the field, though. And it has to be said, there are only 2 spearmen here to defend. But there are 3 villages, so it feels inevitable that Naizu is going to be able to get the outpost up. Behind this, remember, the trade is going to escalate. This is a cheap composition being pushed out by Naizu. Just a few spears, few horsemen, nothing else needed. Just check the vision right now. Yes, this is what I'm talking about. Like, scouts laid all around, eyes everywhere. He'll know if anything gets spotted. But, you know what? Puppy Paw, his bro really loves this thing called trading. And it seems like Puppy Paw's a little bit suspicious. He's prowling around. He's like, is there a trade going on? Because this doesn't look like an all-in. It looks like a nuisance to keep me in my base. Watching range has now also been prepped by Puppy Paw. Outpost greedily being rushed up. PP fully sees it. First archers are going to come out. Needs to snipe out those villies quickly. Villagers are going to form a front line of defense to the roost. They need every piece there to defend, because if they can't kill off their villagers, this outpost is going up. And Torch is out. He finally realizes it's come down to that. No choice but to go full conviction here. So we'll be able to deny the outpost. Now, behind this, Puppy Paw has scouted the trade. He now knows. And in some ways, this can work quite well for Puppy Paw. Because now, as long as you can push these villagers away, the knight will be able to kill them, by the way. There's no way they're going to get out of this alive. Then what you can then do is there's enough traders that a few knights will extract value. Because now your opponent is heavily invested. Oh my god, the body blocks. Okay, big credit to Naizu there. Minimize losses as much as they could. Looks like 2 villagers maybe go down here, but you at least keep 1 alive, courtesy of the Khan. Khan did have to give over his life, though, so no maneuver arrows to work with. And Knight can't finish what he started. In fact, he could have if the archers just followed in there. He didn't know that, of course. Puppy Paw didn't have full vision in the area. He didn't know what was coming. He has at least got most of the control of his base back. Does feel bad that you had to invest in a hunting cabin near this boar and you can't access it now. Consider it takes 5 minutes, roughly, to make the cost of this hunting cabin back. Doesn't feel good. But scouts fully know. Knight's now on the way. So this is where Puppy Paw can punish. Naizu is trying to get more spears in the field. These spears are in the wrong location, though. They're guarding the gold. So knights are going to extract value. And keep in mind, behind this, Puppy Paw is going for Castle Age. isn't going to be bogged down in these feudal age details. Knights are struggling to find full value so far, though. Spearmen are pushing them away. Archers are starting to deprive value, vision value at least, away from the Mongol player. And archers, these guys will kill. The spearmen won't counter them. There's nothing else to counter at all right now. There's no horsemen, no archers for the Mongol player themselves. So this will be the last of the trade they're likely to get for the next minute or two. So they have to make it last. That being said, they do have plenty of gold in the bank, and they still have gold being gathered on the gold vein. Step read out now underway. Other side of the map, Abbey of Trinity is already being built up by Papipour. Archery ranges are being prepped, so we are looking at a likely horse archer composition here. Should be up against heavily armored units, so mostly lancers. Pretty effective unit, remember. Horse archers have high base damage. Over half of their damage is going to go through the armor of the heavy cavalry. Oh, hold the phone. It's not even that. It's just, is he really going archers? Oh, this is quite surprising from Papipour. Okay, there we go. Yeah, no, that's much better. Must have been some sort of misclick or like just habit there. He does switcheroo. So we are getting horse archers. I was going to say, archers would not make much sense here. Like, you're up against a class-age Mongol player. The backbone of them is going to be heavily armored units. And archers just do nothing against them. And credit to him, though. Papipour was shut off the trade, so it was annoying, but isn't going to escalate is the important detail. In fact, it's just 5 traders, always AFK. He could try to sneak them to the other side of the map, but the other side of the map would go right past the base of Papipour, so just realistically not an option here. I don't know, Poker. Do I really want to know what I've been pledged to? Before I just pledge my life to AoE 4, isn't that the way it works? Knights plus Village is going to move out, so he does want that ball back. We'll be able to get it. It's going to cost him a villager or two, though. Quite pricey here. That's now an 8 eco lead. Of course, 5 of that is traders for the Mongol player. So not as far ahead as you'd maybe think. But still a clear lead. That can, of course, be offset if you're able to pick up the relics as Papipour. Horse archers are also on the way now, so it looks like they know the trade is coming. Oh, the timing! How did he know? What? You can tell this guy has been a greedy Mongol in the past. He knows exactly what's up. 3 horse archers will find their bang for buck. 5 traders out in the middle of nowhere with no escort. What a read. What a sniff out right there. Maximum value for the horse archers. They're going to, of course, roam around and maybe try to extract some value towards the base. He's got enough horse archers at home to deter the lancers as well. It's looking good right now for Papipour. Azul needs to get more of these knights out in the field. Needs to do it fast as well. So a few traders did at least get away. Spearmen are finding the time completely wasted by the horse archers on the flanks, but numbers will continue to escalate. It's very straightforward for Papipour now. Select archery rangers, hit R with shift on repeat until you run out of resources, and don't look back. Well, there's going to be a whiff. Papipour just needs to get more of those relics home. Already got 1. Would like more. Traders are now looking to begin trade once again. Horse archers mirroring the movement, lancers north side. This many horse archers will put a heavy dent in these lancers. 7 damage is going through per horse archer. Front side looks like there is going to be a little rider in. Warrior Monk's going to be able to get home. Oh no, oh no! When you think you've denied it and you get deprived, oh, that feels bad. Horse archers are doing a good job of keeping these Mongols at bay. Double the count, actually, of ranged cavalry compared to melee cavalry on the other side, so not a good place to be in. Big shout out to High Notes. I see you coming through with the sub. Much love, bud. Appreciate you. Welcome back to the Swarm. This is becoming quite the Swarm, isn't it? Up to 20 horse archers. Isn't slowing down. This is a hard composition to get right, by the way. In that if Papipour makes a mistake once, he can't replace, because he's investing wood in this, remember. Wood is the limiting factor on this map. So, would love to see him layer in some knights, though, which is why I love to see that already in the production queue here. 3 already getting ready to be pumped out. These are, of course, going to eventually be upgraded to Castle Age. Just needs to get enough to justify it. And that means he's going to have a front line, a back line. It means he's also going to be sacrificing food gold units in these fights instead of the food wood units. That's very important due to what we already mentioned. Lancers are going to try to make that difficult in the early phases, though. More relics are at least on the way in. Wololo. Naizu will realize in time. Run away, but as you do run away, heavy damage is going to be inflicted. It looks like Naizu has started to move for the relics themselves. So first Shaman is going to hit the field. But it's already looking like it's going to be 3 relics for Poppy Paw, possibly 4 at this rate. Oops. Horse Archer's a little bit drunk on the flanks. A lot of micro raids going on across the map here. So a lot to keep track of, and very important that Poppy Paw does. Has to be actively microing these fights. Meanwhile, Naizu, not to discount what they're doing, but they could essentially just A-click into this engagement. After all this, I'm starting to get a little bit worried for Poppy Paw's comp. Definitely needs a lot more knights in the mixer. He's losing Horse Archer mass. They're just getting picked apart. The issue they have is that this charge lasts so long, and it eventually allows a gap close. You can see at 1.94 movement speed compared to your 1.62. So they'll get that initial hit, and that initial hit is going to do 36 damage on a unit that only has 85 health. It's quite crippling. This might be the time where if you were Poppy Paw, you consider crossbows. You know, you've got a decent amount of gold trickling in with the 3 relics plus the big gold vein access. You've got plenty of food. This would be a good time to add in some crossbows. But it seems like he feels he's not there yet. That would commit him to a slow, direct push. By going Horse Archers and Knights, he still has raid potential on the flanks. Understandable and very desirable. Second town center now coming out from Naizu. So let's think about win conditions at this stage. For Naizu, it's really just a case of escalating Knights until you're at a high enough count that you can just flood the base. You're going to find very concentrated eco, and you'll be able to snipe a lot of villagers that way. Just with the Lance charge alone, right? Because this is a situation where you're playing against no textiles. I don't think he's there yet, though. This seems a little bit premature. You can force some idle time, but you can't hang around too long. Might try to, though. Unless Poppy Paw, he doesn't want to stop gathering food. He has no food. Try to run away. That's going to be a heavy hit, though. He's at least skirting it correctly, so he's going to minimize casualties, especially since they're clicking on the wrong villagers here. So good micro there. Poppy Paw saves himself from a deathly loss there. So there's going to be a turnaround. Arm arrow does come out, so Poppy Paw will buy time and back off for now. Until it runs out at least. Horse Archers have now arrived. Really, what you want to be doing at this stage if you're Naizu is you want to be splitting off a few lancers, maybe going in, trying to pick a few villagers. Idle time, idle time, idle time. I did say before he could just A-click, but now that this is turning into something else, A-click alone doesn't feel good enough. And with 21 lancers, there's definitely an argument that you have enough to split multiple groups. Instead, he's just trying to, like, you see what he's trying to do, right? He's trying to go in for that one big raid that kills 20 villagers. The problem is, because the way that formation shuffles work and hitboxes work, it's very difficult to achieve that. You saw what happened when he attempted it against Poppy Paw. Like, having more villagers actually helped him get away. Now this fight, I mean, this is a fight you need to get away from fast. This is just bad. This is heavy losses. It's not favorable to take this type of engagement. Lancers on the north side are going to force the villagers back. Poppy Paw, where are we going? Slow retreat away. And a heavy lead now. Notice the difference here. 24 eco lead for Naizu. So Poppy Paw, he needs to get vengeance. He can't just sit on his hands now and say, well, it's good enough. I stopped him raiding. You need to actively raid yourself. That's the whole point of this composition. You go into the Horse Archers plus the Knights. It's because you should be able to go do the same sort of damage. Raids are starting to be cleaned up. It's like Poppy Paw, although economically behind, militarily ahead. Sure, you can say he doesn't have much of a front line, but there's many Horse Archers. You reach a point where they're doing enough damage to quickly take out the enemy Lancers. Just a few Knights will tank. Well, you have to look at what's happening here. Is Poppy Paw is essentially playing the Feudal Age build for the Rus in Castle Age. The Feudal Age build is you build a few Knights to tank, and then you mass Archers. He's massing Horse Archers, but he still has a few Knights to tank. to be in those horse archers. Around the south side. Need to be careful. Those Springle Towers will tear you a new one. Have to respect the Yam. Another benefit of this build, right? When you go for this one, you don't want to have to go buy the Yam network for 350. Well, if you're going for mass Lancers, you don't need to buy Yam network because that would only inflate the movement speed of infantry units. Because cavalry always get it by default. It's like the raids have slowed down for now. Naizu is trying to get more of those Lancers out. Back up to 20, but I'm just looking at this number of the horse archers. I'm getting a bit worried. You'd think this eco situation would be just great for Naizu. But the problem that I'm looking at is at this rate, you're going to be forced into a fight before you fully unlock the eco advantage, if that makes sense. Like, you simply are not producing enough knights. I actually think one big whoopsie we're seeing here, Naizu is seemingly so worried about the lack of wood long-term that they're not building more military infrastructure now. They could be building a lot more knights. Just look at their reserves. 1,000 food, almost 1,000 gold. Just sitting there, unused. Puppy Ball. A little bit ambitious to dive around the TC here. Wants to try and weave around the back. The problem is if you ever do that, you find yourself out of position. If there's Yam in that area, these knights will gap close. Especially with Maneuver Arrow on top of it. So their Puppy Ball just continue to probe the defenses. As a response to this, notice what he's doing. He's moving out of the map. He's taking pocket ecos because what he started to do is he's intentionally pinning Naizu in his base so these raids don't come through anymore. Warrior Monks are going to lead the charge unwillingly. Forced to nonetheless. How many of these knights trying to micro to optimize damage here. He's minimizing the output coming from Naizu. Naizu's being fully kited here. I honestly would feel trolled at this point. Notice the trades are favoring him. That's why there needs to be a maneuver arrow. Instead, it's going to be the armor arrow coming out in the berry bush patch as well. That's a problem. That creates choke points. Choke points the horse archers can use. And now the turnabout. A commitment's going to come out. Over-commitment, in fact. Puppy Paw is going to lose the full front line. Needs to find a way to snipe these shamans, but very difficult to do to micro-correct in these situations. Remember, folks, the deal with horse archers, you can't just have them A-click there. The best way they use is when they start stepping like this because their attack animation is too delayed between. It's like there's now spears being added in, shamans as well. I am very much worried that this formation is getting too big and unwieldy now for Puppy Paw. But he's still shrinking that Lancer count. That's the important detail. Behind this, though, the eco advantage is now starting to come through. It's almost a double up in eco. Military is now neck and neck again. Remember, it's not premium units anymore. And oh boy, I think we might be sticking a fork in him soon. I'm not really sure how much longer Puppy Paw can keep this up. I mean, wood reserves, it's got a decent chunk left. But my bigger concern is that Naizu has fixed the issue. Remember we said production was the problem? Well, it's been inflated now. We're up to, what, 4 stables? 2 of them in the Uvu range. And a siege workshop with Mangonels coming. This is the pivot point. If Puppy Paw can't find damage in the next 30 seconds, he's going to start getting pushed back towards his base. I think he did just scout out that siege workshop, so Puppy Paw at least aware of what he's up against. Notice that he's changed the staggered formation here. This is much better. It means he doesn't get clustered so much on the retreat. Line formation as well. Yeah, line. There we go. That's what I want to see. So now he's going wide. It means that even if these guys reach the first wave of horse archers, they aren't necessarily going to be able to fully envelop them straight away. You see what I mean? It also means they're targeting different horse archers, so the first wave kind of lasts longer than they did before. Still, it feels like you're working so hard to get so little out of this. Mango is finally in play. And this is the gang bush factor. Notice the vision. Puppy Paw, he should be sensing it's coming. But he won't see it until it's too late. First pummel comes through. A few horse archers get sniped out, so good opening maneuver there from Naizu. Mango ready for a second flurry. If he's offered up the opportunity, and oh no, Puppy Paw too late to react. Naizu is getting a little bit baited here. Will guard. Mangonel with the spears. Lancers are going to commit in. I mean, this is just a back and forth, but realistically, Naizu is gaining ground. Puppy Paw still not bringing out a switch either. I half expected to see crossbows, but obviously now that we're working against Mangonels. And maybe even Spears here. Like, Spears would be incredible for him, but it's another unit that requires wood. And I think that's a long-term limitation for him. Like, look how dangerous Poppy Paw is playing now. Good lord. And now behind all this, because trade has been going for so long, it's time to go up. Naizu is building the White Stupa. Imperial Age on the way for the Mongols. And a GG probably on the way from Poppy Paw. He doesn't even wait around for it. He realizes his beat. Good read coming out from Naizu. Love the pivot into Mangonels that really crushed the spirits of Poppy Paw here. And we see the issue. When you're stuck on food wood type units, you have to get risky. You have to play mid-map resources. When you're just going for this one unit comp, it's very difficult. I think looking back at this game, one of the big takeaways is that Poppy Paw never had this knight escalation in his favor. You know, the idea of horse archers seems nice, and if you find these small micro raids that you can shut down, it's good because you're sniping out the lancers one by one. If it ever becomes a staged battle, you're on the clock. And what Poppy Paw identified is the moment that Mangonel came out, clock's broke, right? Doomsday clock has hit 12. We're out of time. Calls GG. Naizu looking pretty nicely with that victory.